BJ Mafia was popping. So the Jacksonville Jaguars will be traveling up to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the New York Jets in a Week 16 Thursday night football matchup. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming off a huge emotional victory over the Dallas Cowboys, beating them in overtime 40-34. The New York Jets are fighting for their playoff positioning and lives, as they are not going to be able to win the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills running away with the division. The Jets are coming off a big-time loss to the Detroit Lions, a win in which they felt like they needed, and now they really need this win to keep their playoff hopes alive, versus the Jacksonville Jaguars now control their own destiny over these next 3 games in the next 3 weeks of the season. And like I do for every single preview video, I'm always going to talk about the opponent first that's going to come with the New York Jets. I'll talk about them on both sides of the ball and also their injury report. Then I'll flip to the Jacksonville Jaguars, talk about them on both sides of the ball, including the injury report. And at the very end of the video, I will be giving my final thoughts and verdict for this game. So now let's actually talk about the New York Jets first. So I want to talk about the New York Jets injury report first, because they've been decimated with injuries, not just these last couple of weeks, but really this entire season. And the biggest loss to start off the season, before the season even began, was back in training camp when they lost former first-round pick offensive tackle stud Mekhi Becton, who suffered that season-ending knee injury. They just lost former first-round pick out of USC a few weeks ago, back in Week 7, Elijah Vera Tucker. He suffered a torn tricep, so he was listed out, and he's been on injured reserve. He is out for the season. And both of their starting offensive tackles, Duwan Brown and George Fant, have both been limited in practice. They have both been unspecified for their game time decision, and both of these guys are a million years old, so hopefully those guys are upright. I don't wish injury upon anybody, but they clearly have a lot of offensive line issues right now. Then also sticking with the Jets injury report, both Denzel Mims and Corey Davis are both listed with a concussion protocol. They will be game time decisions. Mike White was officially ruled out, and Zach Wilson will be getting the start on Thursday Night Football. Quinnen Williams, their stud nose tackle, is going to be a game time decision after he suffered a calf injury in that Bills game a couple weeks ago. He missed the Lions game, and their free safety LaMarcus Joyner has a hip injury. He missed the Lions game as well too. He will most likely be a game time decision. The Jets just right now cannot catch a break. They are decimated with injury. So moving off of the injury report, let's actually talk about the New York Jets and what they actually did last weekend in that 20-17 loss versus the Detroit Lions. Zach Wilson didn't have his best game, but he also didn't play his worst game of the season. Zach Wilson was 18 of 35, 317 yards, 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. Garrett Wilson, first-round pick out of Ohio State, had a great game, 4 catches for 98 yards. Smith chipped in 4 catches for 77. Elijah Moore, 4 catches for 51. Uzama had 2 for 41, including 2 touchdowns. The Jets also allowed 4 sacks last weekend, and a lot of that has to do with how decimated their offensive line is with injuries, and also not having Quinnen Williams. They got 0 sacks on Jared Goff last weekend. Not a great performance right there by their front 7. Now let's actually talk about the New York Jets and where their team actually sits as a whole, statistically speaking, in terms of team ranks. Their offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, has this team at 23 in the NFL in points per game, 24 in rushing yards per game, number 15 in the NFL in passing yards per game. They're 26 in the NFL in third down conversion percentage, number 19 in total yards per game, and they are 14th worst in the NFL with allowing 35 sacks this season. Like I said, a lot of that has to do with how decimated that offensive line is with injuries, and they are number 27 in the NFL in red zone efficiency. The New York Jets as a whole are -3 in turnover differential, not doing a great job in that department. Now flipping over to the Jets defense, this is their bread and butter. This is the backbone of this team, having an amazing defense and one of the best defenses in the NFL. They are number 4 in the NFL in opponent points per game, number 11 in opponent rushing yards per game, number 4 in opponent passing yards per game, number 15 in opponent third down conversion percentage. They are also number 3 in opponent total yards per game, and they are 9th in the NFL with 39 sacks this season. Getting Quinnen Williams back will be a huge boost to that defensive line, and Sheldon Rankins has been another guy that's made some solid contributions on that defensive line this season. Now I'm going to flip back to the Jets offense. I'm actually going to talk about a couple of their key players and what they've done this season. Quarterback Zach Wilson, former number 2 overall pick out of BYU, 1,596 passing yards this season in 8 games, 31st among all NFL quarterbacks, 6 touchdowns, tied for 31st, 6 interceptions, tied for 6th. He has a 42.4 quarterback rating, scale of 0 to 100, 26 among all NFL quarterbacks, and he's completing about 54.9% of his passes, Not a good job there. Garrett Wilson, number 10 overall pick out of Ohio State, 67 receptions, tied for 22nd in the NFL, 966 yards, tied for 11th, 4 touchdowns, tied for 34th, and he's averaging 14.4 yards per catch, 15th among all NFL wide receivers. Garrett Wilson's a stud. We've known this, and he can get some more consistency at the quarterback position. Garrett Wilson, you're going to truly see just how elite of a wide receiver one he can be. Now, flipping into the Jets defense, the biggest name you're going to talk about with that Jets defense is obviously going to be number 4 overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft out of Cincinnati, Sauce Gardner. And Sauce Gardner has played like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate this year. Sauce Gardner has 2 interceptions, tied for 30th among all NFL corners. He is number 1 in passes deflected with 16. Sauce Gardner in man coverage per PFF, 18 targets this year, 17 yards allowed. That is elite lockdown coverage. Sauce has also allowed just 1 or fewer catches in half of the games that he has played in this year. Sauce Gardner is truly going to look like a generational cornerback for the New York Jets moving forward. He has been one of the best players in the NFL this year on the defensive side of the ball. A couple other guys I want to mention on that defensive side. I've talked about Quinnen Williams a lot, but let's talk about his brother Quincy Williams, former Jaguar linebacker. He has really found a home in New York. He played really well last year, and he's really stepped it up again this year. I'm extremely happy for him. Seems like a great dude. Quincy Williams, very happy for that guy. CJ Mosley is another very good linebacker, and DJ Reed, another good cornerback alongside on the opposite side of Sauce Gardner. The Jets have obviously one of the best defenses in the NFL, very elite defense. The problem with this team really is Zach Wilson, but I'll address that later on in the video. Let's actually talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars now. So now that we're talking about the Jaguars, let me briefly talk about their injury report. It's really not that deep because guys like Chad Muma are probably going to be playing. Trevor Lawrence is listed as questionable, but we all know Trevor Lawrence will be a good go. Trayvon Walker did miss the Cowboys game on his 22nd birthday with a right ankle injury. I think it's just a little mild sprain. I do expect Trayvon Walker to go in this Thursday night game, but that will be up to the coaches and the rest of the staff to make that decision. But Trayvon Walker's obviously going to help shore up what the Jaguars can do, especially in that front 7. So I expect for him to go. And then also the biggest news coming out of the Jaguars this week with injuries was going to be with left tackle Cam Robinson. He's going to be out for the season. That is a big blow for the Jaguars offensive line. Walker Little is going to have to step up now. He did a great job on Micah Parsons in that second half. But Cam Robinson, I hope you get healthy, man. Just prayers up, bro. And we want you back as soon as possible, man. Just keep resting up. Now talking about the Jaguars, let's actually talk a little bit about what they did last weekend versus the Dallas Cowboys. Trevor Lawrence versus the Dallas Cowboys was 27 of 42, 318 yards, 4 touchdowns, a new career high. He did have 1 interception. He did have 1 late game fumble, but he had a quarterback rating of 109, and he got the W. Most importantly, Christian Kirk, 6 catches for 92 yards. Zay Jones, 6 catches for 109 yards, 3 touchdowns. He got a hat trick. That's his best Mbappe impression. Evan Ingram, 8 catches for 62 yards. Marvin Jones Jr., 2 catches, 17 yards, and a touchdown. ETN chipped into the running game, really got back on track. 19 attempts, 103 yards. And Rayshawn Jenkins was the MVP of this game. He had a historic NFL day. 18 tackles, 2 passes deflected, 2 interceptions, and a pick 6 to walk off the game in Jacksonville. Rayshawn Jenkins is the first player in NFL history with 18 tackles and 2 interceptions in a game. Historic day by Rayshawn Jenkins. Pro Bowl this man. He's really stepped it up this season. I truly believe he's probably the heart and soul of this defense. Maybe next to a guy like a Lewican or maybe Andre Cisco. Love what I'm seeing out of him this year. Arden Key also chipped in 2 sacks last weekend, and also Foye Oluokun had 14 tackles on the day. He still leads the NFL in tackles this year with 156 after leading the NFL in tackles last year with 192. Great job by him. The Jaguars as a whole versus the Dallas Cowboys had 503 yards of total offense. They were 8 of 12 on third down. They only allowed 1 sack, and Trevor Lawrence did a good job evading pressure more often than not. The Jaguars also got 3 sacks on Dak Prescott, and the Jaguars had 192 yards on the ground. What a game by the Jaguars. What a statement victory. The Jaguars are now giving themselves an opportunity to go and make a late playoff run. So talking about the Jaguars and where they sit statistically speaking overall as a team, they have a +4 turnover differential, an amazing job there, significantly better than what it was last year. The Jaguars were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. In terms of turnover differential, the Jaguars currently currently are number 12 in the NFL in points per game, number 10 in rushing yards per game, number 10 in passing yards per game, number 13 in third down conversion percentage, number 6 in total yards per game, and they are number 14 in red zone efficiency, doing a phenomenal job there. Then talking about the Jaguars defense, it's significantly lackluster to the Jaguars offense in terms of team ranks. They are number 21 in opponent points per game, number 16 in opponent rushing yards per game, number 29 in opponent passing yards per game, number 29 in opponent third down conversion percentage, and they're number 27 in opponent total yards per game. Jaguars defense, while it's been very sporadic this year, have been very up and down. The Jaguars have been making the timely and necessary turnovers more often than not when they need to, and giving the offense an opportunity and giving them a chance. But the Jaguars defense still has schematically a lot of changes that need to be made. Let's actually talk about some of the Jaguars players and what they've done statistically this year. Trevor Lawrence this season through 15 weeks, 3,520 yards in the air, which is 9th among all NFL quarterbacks, 24 touchdowns, tied for 5th, 7 interceptions, tied for 12th, and he's a quarterback rating scale 0 to 100 of a 56.8, 13th among all NFL quarterbacks. And since week 9, Trevor Lawrence has a 70.4 completion percentage, first, 14 touchdowns, tied for 2nd, 1 interception, and has a quarterback rating of 111.2, which is first among all NFL quarterbacks. And Trevor Lawrence, since week 9 in the red zone specifically, where quarterbacks make their bread and butter, 23 of 35, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. What a job by William Trevor Lawrence, aka Mr. Sunshine. Christian Kirk this season, the big acquisition that the Jaguars got, has made significant strides this season. He's having a career year. 73 receptions, 966 yards, 7 touchdowns. Zay Jones, 74 receptions, 764 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Evan Ingram has 61 receptions, 610 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Travis Etienne, 182 attempts on the ground, 917 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he's got 1,155 yards in terms of scrimmage yards combined. Travis Etienne's done a great job this year. He's an explosive player. While he has had a fumbling issue over these last couple of weeks, if he can fix that problem, he's going to be one of the best backs in the NFL. I need to see him tighten it up with holding onto the ball. Another quick thing I also want to say about the Jaguars defense is that the Jaguars are currently the only team in the NFL that have 3 guys in the top 13 in passes deflected, with guys like Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, and Rayshon Jenkins. Darius Williams did a great job last week. I believe he had 0 catches allowed when he was playing on the outside. Trey Herndon needs to do a better job in the slot. Darius Williams has been really stepping it up these last couple of weeks, man. Now that I've really talked about both teams, I want to kind of wrap up this video, talk about my final thoughts, and then I'll give my verdict at the very end. So my final thoughts, if I'm the Jets on offense, I'm going to allow Zach Wilson to get out of the pocket and use his legs in the running game. We know Zach Wilson has not been a good quarterback this year. That is not me being biased. That will be from Jets fans to NFL fans. Everybody knows Zach Wilson has not been a good quarterback this year. And that is not just what the media is telling you. That's from me watching a lot of Jets games this year, watching a lot of Zach Wilson, and also going back and watching some of the film. Zach Wilson, the ceiling and the potential is still there. The off-platform throws are still there, but he's extremely sporadic. He leaves the pocket way too early. Even when he has a clean pocket, he's evading pressure. He's trying to do too much at times. And Zach Wilson, the arm talent, like I said, is still there. I'm not sitting here trying to tear him down, but he's wildly inconsistent. He misses the open throws, and more often than not, he's not going through his progression and his reads, and his mechanics are sometimes a lot more off than you would like to see, because Zach Wilson really is dead-eyeing the receiver right after the snap, and that's obviously not a good thing to have. That, to me, is on Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator, and Robert Saleh for not mechanically, schematically, and also getting Zach Wilson to play with confidence. That is a fundamental thing that I think that they need to instill in him, in that confidence, because while Mike White maybe this season might be the guy for the Jets to go further in the playoffs if they make the playoffs, Zach Wilson, to me, is still the guy with the higher ceiling. I don't think that should be really up for debate. I don't know if his days are numbered in New York, but Zach Wilson, maybe he just needs a fresh start. I don't really know. I don't want to talk about him more often than not, but I just wanted to say that about Zach Wilson really quickly too. The ceiling, the potential is still there, but mechanically, fundamentally, the confidence, schematically, what this team has done to put around him, because the talent is clearly there for Zach Wilson and the talent is around Zach Wilson, the Jets need to do a better job there. Now transitioning into the Jaguars, I will say that on offense, the Jaguars need to continue to use the short and intermediate game, attack the middle of the field, keep guys like CJ Mosley and both Quincy Williams guessing, because Trevor Lawrence has been amazing getting the ball out quickly, timely, and with precision, reading the defense, and also Doug Peterson's done a great job with the play calling, getting a lot of misdirection going, and we saw that last week, especially with a guy like Jamal Agnew. And then for the Jaguars defensively, how I'm attacking Zach Wilson in this offense is I'm playing a lot of cover 2 flat zone coverage, and I'm only setting a 4-man blitz. The Jaguars did a great job last week getting after Dak Prescott and rattling him, even without Trayvon Walker. And if the Jaguars can continue to play zone coverage, coming from a guy like Zach Wilson, who has not really played a lot of great, football against zone coverage, and also if you do play man coverage, he can then evade, use his legs, and get out of the pocket. I'd rather the Jaguars play zone coverage and just really make Zach Wilson go through his reads and beat you there. That's just my 2 cents on it. Now getting into my verdict, I do have the Jaguars winning this game narrowly, 24-21. This is going to be a much lower scoring game than I think a lot of people will realize. Maybe I hope I'm wrong. I don't really know, but I do think that the Jaguars go up there and get this huge Week 16 victory in order to control their own destiny. This is going to be a cold, rainy weather game at MetLife Stadium, so hopefully the Jaguars can do a good job holding on to the ball. And we're going to see, I think that this is going to be a great matchup for both teams. The former number 1 and number 2 overall pick going up head-to-head against one another. I really like this matchup. I'm super excited to see what happens. But Jaguar fans and Jets fans, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you guys did enjoy today's video though, make sure you guys drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. And if you guys enjoyed today's content, man, make sure you guys also consider hitting that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more NBA and of course Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys go follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below. But thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.